Provost Dalal, members of the Lebanese Petroleum Authority, colleagues, distinguished colleagues, I want to welcome you here today. We are very honored to have 5 of the 6 members of the Lebanese Petroleum Authority. I should start saying this word easier because there's going to be lots of money associated with it. And we're very fortunate to have 5 of the 6 here to speak to us about the needs of the Lebanese Petroleum Authority in terms of research, education, and teaching. And we will have an opportunity afterwards to tell them something about what we are doing at AUB. And at the end, we'll have a question and answer session. 4 of the 6 members are graduates of AUB. And 3 of the 4 are graduates of FEA. This is the bigger one. Now, Provost Dalal, this is evidence that we need a larger lecture hall. He'll put it in his budget. Okay. I'd like to first introduce you, the members of the authority, one by one. If you could raise your hand or stand up or something for everybody to recognize you. Asim Abu Ibrahim, he's the president, head of Quality, Health, Safety, and Environmental Department. Nasser Htait, he's head of Technical and Engineering Department. Gabi Daboul, head of the Legal Department. He said he doesn't need to stand up, he can just raise his hand and block everything. Wissam Shbat, head of Geology, Geophysics Department. Wissam Zabi, head of Finance and Economics Department. Walid Nasser is not with us. He could not join us today. He's on travel. Okay. We'll start out with Asim Abu Ibrahim giving us a presentation. Please welcome him. And you're an alumnus of the environmental program.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. It's a great honor and pleasure to be among you today. I used to study on these chairs 19 years back, and really I never thought that I would be presenting here today in this position on this topic. But with AUB you can believe in what you are doing, and this is what AUB teaches you, the first one. So I will try to talk to you today about what we are doing. Yes, this one. How we can. What we've been doing since we were appointed, and of course all the people and all the newspapers are asking when. We'll try to give you more of a technical overview about the sector, about what we were doing since last year, and what is the history of the sector so far. So, of course, the East Mediterranean Levant Basin, which Lebanon is part of, it has been a great area of interest for the hydrocarbons. There has been many recent finds in the nearby countries, in Cyprus, in Israel. And this has triggered, for us as well, Lebanon, to follow the search for hydrocarbons. Recent gas discoveries with great amounts, 35 TCF. Other studies pointed 122 TCF, the survey by USG. And of course, this will be a big market for Europe, supplying Europe as well as other countries. So it's of great interest and to pursue this sector. So the oil and gas sector development, it started long time back. It dated back to the 30s even. There is an onshore law that dates back to the 30s. There have been initiatives onshore, and some wells were drilled since the 40s, 50s till 70s. But the offshore work started in 90s with some geophysical surveys that were carried out, and for the people that are not technical, these are the first studies that could be carried out to give insights on the presence of hydrocarbon in the subsea or subsurface when we're talking onshore. So these surveys that started since 1990, then more work was done in 2000, 2D, two-dimensional surveys, as well as three-dimensional surveys starting 2007. And the results were collected, and these results were encouraging, which has triggered the Lebanese government to take on board Norwegian support, the Oil for Development program, which with the Lebanese government, they collaborated to prepare the Offshore Petroleum Resources Law. And this was the serious regulatory work that was done at the government sector. And this law was approved in 2010. So the law has specified the petroleum administration need to be formed to manage this sector. And the decree regulating the petroleum administration was issued in 2012. And the L.P.A. was appointed late 2012, in specifically 4th of December 2012. So since we were appointed, we were working on the contract activity, what we call, which means preparing for the bid for launching the first licensing round for awarding blocks to companies to explore and drill for hydrocarbons. And the plan, we have put a plan to do the bidding in 2013, to have the bids ready early 2014 and try to award by 2014. And according to the law that was drafted in 2010, the exploration period should last at maximum 10 years, but in the contract we have put it for 6 years, which means we expect the duration to be 2019 or 2020. And the overall contract will last for 25 years, that can be extended another 5 years, which means 2044. So we're talking about a contract that will last for long duration, for generations. We have to think not only about us, but about our children and children, for the revenues as well management. So the law has defined the oil and gas governance structure, and it's a three-tier structure mostly. We are under the Minister of Energy and Water, as part of the Ministry of Energy and Water. And the Minister of Energy and Water reports to the Council of Ministers. There are different levels of governance and decisions that are taken at the different levels, depending on the issue. Some are taken at our level, other actions are taken at the Minister of Energy level, and other permits are taken at the Council of Ministers, like the approval and of the contract and signature of the contract. So for us, the P.A., we are divided into 6 departments. Those are Strategic Planning Department, Technical and Engineering Department, Geology and Geophysics Department, Legal, Economics and Finance, QHSE Department. And we are here to share with you what we are doing in more detail and to explain what are the functions of each department. So the main responsibilities of the Lebanese Petroleum Administration is, of course, first to promote the petroleum resources or the potential petroleum resources, to evaluate the qualifications of the capabilities of the companies that they will be bidding, to prepare the invitation to bids, the specifications, the relevant permits and agreements, to support a negotiation of the terms of the contracts with the companies that they will be submitting, to evaluate the plans for the field development, petroleum transportation, decommissioning, removal of facilities, to manage and follow up, supervise and monitor all petroleum activities. So we will be the entity that will be following the company's operation in the offshore, to manage the data associated with petroleum activities, as well as to handle and manage the petroleum register. So when we started putting the strategy for the licensing, how would we do the licensing? What's our strategy? Of course, the first thing is to think about sustainability. This is a resource that's not renewable. It's a non-renewable resource, so we have to be careful with its extraction, with its use. So we have to think about licensing at certain time frames, and to make sure that this resource will suffice us and suffice the future generations. It's, the licensing strategy should go in parallel with the economic growth of the country also. The legal system, we have a legal system now that does not take into consideration oil and gas activities. So also we have to be careful and cautious with the introduction of a new sector and the legal system that can manage it. Organizational capacity, of course, our government, the other ministries that are related, they have certain capabilities and capacities and resources. We had to take that into consideration and to plan our licensing strategy accordingly. The risks what we're talking about here is geological risk, environmental risk, business risk, and all these factors feed into our licensing strategy. The scope frequency of the bid, how often we have to do this licensing strategy round. So for instance, we can do this licensing round every year or every 2 years or every 5 years, depends. So this we have to also include in our licensing strategy. The bidding conditions as well, the bidding conditions will be defined based on the strategy that we would put. So as explained in the first session, there was a lot of geological work being carried out, two-dimensional surveys that covered the whole offshore, which is about 22,000 kilometers square, as well as 3D geological survey, and these were done by two companies, PGS and Spectrum. And as mentioned, this work was initiated since 2007. So the first step was to define the blocks, and these blocks define the areas that would be awarded for the bidders. So each bidder, what we call a consortium, will be bidding on a block. So, and this block is the area based on which we'll be doing the agreement. So subdividing the blocks was mostly driven by the geological information that we have, the structures that we have, the volume size, etc., expected potential volume size. And based on that, we have subdivided the blocks into 10 blocks, taken into consideration some buffer zone to give buffer from the shore, as well as consideration to economic factors, boundaries, as well as others. The first step that we did is to pre-qualify the bidders. So in early March, we have opened the round for pre-qualifying companies, and we have set criteria for the companies on 4 pillars, and these include legal, financial, technical, and QHSE. And for your information, the companies are divided into 2 categories, operators and non-operators, and this is defined by the law. Just to give you a brief to understand what we're talking about, the operator will be the main party in the consortium, and he will be designing and executing the exploration program, doing the well design, the drilling completion, production. He is the main guy doing the engineering, infrastructure, the services and logistics, and he is the representative of the consortium. Whereas the non-operators will be supporting the consortium by co-financing the project, by providing commercial and marketing activities, or giving technical input and regulatory role. So based on that, we have put different criteria for each of these 2 categories. The operators have more stringent requirements, namely on the financial part and technical part. We wanted entities that are financially strong and technically capable, knowing that we are talking about a deep offshore environment that ranges from 1,500 meters to 2,000, above 2,000 meters. So we really wanted to look at companies that did that work before.